Well, hello everyone. It is that Weems guy, and we're recording Wednesday, April the 26th at 8:04 p.m. Eastern Time. And joining me tonight for his triumphant second appearance on the That Weems Guy show is Dave Spaulding. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing well. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. It was an eventful day. We talked about all of that before we got started, but I don't know if we need to bore the audience with that.
Airplane crashes are certainly an event that are worth discussing.
Yeah, I'm up to three now.
That's three more than well, I take it. I responded to one, but like I told you, in
Yeah,
Ohio, the State Highway Patrol does
right.
all that. Yeah.
Yeah, this is my third response to one, and I'm up to two train derailments. And as we were saying beforehand, because of the one in Ohio recently, the news media is acting like this is a new phenomenon. They actually
No,
occur kind of
no.
frequently.
They happen a lot. A
Yeah.
lot. And the railroads are really good at them because you watch them come in and clean it up,
Hmm.
put the cars away, put rails down, put new gravel in. You go,
Right.
they've done that a few times before.
The fact that they have specialty equipment designed for it
Exactly.
tells you they do it a lot.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They're really good at it. They can look like it never happened in just a day or two.
Oh yeah. And it's funny that the media is making this big deal about the fact that President Biden hasn't gone to the scene of the one in Ohio. As a guy who's worked major events, the last thing I want during one of those is for the president to show up.
No, no, you don't want that. It's all politics, but you've got
Yeah,
so much going on. There's just, and plus the town and all of the stuff. The
yeah,
last thing you need is a major political figure and all of that which comes with him
right.
to show up. It just makes everything a mess.
Yeah, because every route in and out has to be shut down, every intersection has to be controlled, all of that stuff.
And
People just don't understand it. It's not as simple as he just shows up.
oh no, this and the Secret Service comes in, and rightfully so. I'm not picking on
Hmm.
them, but they take control of most everything, and
Hmm.
everything stops.
Yep.
Everything stops.
They even set up with cell phone jammers
Yes.
and the like.
Hmm.
Just folks just don't realize what happens when the president comes.
It's actually fascinating to watch the whole thing unfold. It really is.
Yeah, I've had the privilege to be a part of it a couple of times. Once one of the guys that I started out with that later went on to be a Secret Service agent
Hmm.
showed up with a former president, and I ended up getting put on that detail.
Hmm.
And I got to go into the room where all the cell phone jammers and stuff were set up. And then I was on another one where on the periphery where the current president showed up.
Hmm.
And I've done a couple for Supreme Court justices. Well, Clarence Thomas a couple of times, not different justices.
It makes you realize the capability the federal government has that nobody really understands.
Yeah. And
If they can do this in this little town, what are like the CIA and the NSA and all those people are doing? They're probably doing
yeah,
some pretty amazing stuff.
yeah. And like I say again, I don't want the president showing up in the middle of my
No,
catastrophe.
no, no, I would not either.
And it just complicates things and makes the response harder.
It would. It would
Yep.
definitely.
Well, you
So
don't have
how have
to.
you been? I haven't talked to you in a while. How have you been?
Oh, just same old, busy as can be.
Hmm.
Still
I'm
working the
not.
full. Yeah,
I am not. My time is my own. It's
yeah,
like when you contacted me about doing this,
yeah.
whenever, because my schedule is flexible.
The last time you were on the show, you were just about to wrap up the business. You had the two legacy courses still to go and
Yeah.
the like, and now you have done that, and the corporation is shut down, correct?
The legacy courses went off great. I
Hmm.
had one little problem with the one in Dayton due to a club member that wasn't even involved in the class. Long story there,
Yeah,
but those went off great. And then I shut down the LLC. Let me tell you something. That's harder to do than you think. You can't just let it languish.
right.
My understanding is if you let it languish, there's tax liabilities.
Hmm.
So you've got to dissolve the LLC, and that involves the federal government and their tax ID numbers and the Secretary of State for the state you're in. And it was really a pain in the butt. So that took a while to get it dissolved, but Handgun Combatives LLC no longer exists.
Did you have to do anything like with inventory and that kind of stuff in
Well,
the solution documents?
my daughter's still running the store.
Right.
She's still doing that. How much longer she'll do that, I don't know. She kind of goes back and forth with it.
Right.
I mean, she can she can get a revenue stream if she wants to focus on it.
Hmm.
The thing is, she's not sure how she wants to do it. And of course, without the classes running regularly, she doesn't have the people checking in like she used to.
Right.
But that's still going on. So I had no inventory.
Right.
I just, I mean, you saw me operate. I operated out of a box.
Right.
I
Well,
still have the box.
but like if you bought, so like when you were putting together your red dot classes,
Mhm.
when you bought that with company money and did it as a tax write-off, did you have to account for any of that when you shut down the LLC?
No,
Okay.
nothing like that. No. Um, if you had major assets, like you're a major company
Hmm.
and there were buyouts and people were getting, but I had nothing like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I was really the only, I mean, I had some employees on paper. My
Hmm.
wife was the secretary and treasurer, but it was basically me. So it was really simple to
Hmm.
do as far as that stuff went. Yeah.
Okay. Well, now that you've shut it down, what are you enjoying about it being shut down?
That I don't have to do it. No, I should probably clarify that.
Hmm.
People thought when I said I was going to retire that I was just going to like disappear. Well, no, I
Hmm.
never had any intention of doing that. I just didn't want to do it as a business anymore. And that sounds almost ungrateful because Lee, we've talked about this
Hmm.
before. Handgun Combatives was very, very good to me.
Hmm.
It was much bigger than I ever had anticipated. I was hoping when we started it that maybe I'd get a class every month or two. I
Yeah.
had no idea that I would be on the road 35, 30 weekends a
Yeah.
year, constantly going it. I was truly blessed that I got the opportunity to do that. And there's some guys like, hey, John Farnham, the
Hmm.
original traveling instructor. He's still out there doing it and he loves it. But it wore me down.
Yeah.
It wore me down. And my wife asked me right in the beginning, she says, I don't want you to go out and do those 2 or 3 week routes. She said, I want you to come home. So on Friday, I was getting on a plane. Monday, I was flying back home. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I was doing, the stuff around the house and I was taking off again. So it really got hard. And I'm to the point now that if I have to be in a hotel room or an airport, I just feel terrible. I took my wife and my daughter on a little trip to Amish country in northern Ohio, and it
Hmm.
was probably the first time I'd stayed in a hotel in quite a while. And I had to make myself relax
Yeah.
because I went into the hotel room and I got amped up about it, and I said, "Wait a minute, relax, take it easy." So I don't miss the hustle bustle turmoil coming and going all the time. I miss the folks. I had the ability to meet people from all across this nation. There was only 2 states that I wasn't in. And along the way, yeah, I met some tactical turds. We know who those are. But for the majority, the vast majority of the people were just terrific. And many of them are friends now. I try to stay in contact with them as
Hmm.
much as I can. So I miss those folks. I miss the honest to goodness questions, the desire to learn. And I try to answer those questions as best I can because I still hear from people. And I try to get back to those folks. The Handgun Combatives Facebook page, the business page, it's
Hmm.
still up,
Yeah.
so I can stay in contact. But quite frankly, Facebook really restricts the reach on that.
Yeah.
We have 23,000 people that like that. And we used to get 50 to 100,000 people that would check in. Now they've just crushed it down to hardly anything. But I keep it open just for those folks that want to reach out and ask something. And of course, a lot of people, I still have the Handgun Combative Gmail account, and
Hmm.
I'll answer those questions as best I can. But I guess I do not miss the hustle and bustle, but I do miss the folks. I miss
Yeah.
the really good people that I got to meet and work with.
Yeah. People that have not had to do extensive traveling and spending time in hotels in airports just don't understand how frustrating it gets.
It is either the other thing I can figure is guys like John Farnham and Masa Yub, they must just have a crust. that
Mhm.
they've developed. They're so used to doing it. I never got used to doing it. And all of the younger instructors out there that are at the local and the regional level that would love to get to the national level, they think that traveling sounds kind of cool and sexy and kind of neat. They have no idea what a grind it really is.
Mhm.
Get stuck in Los Angeles due to a windstorm and spend 24 hours trying to get home. That'll really take the edge and the fun off flying.
Mhm. And unless you're building in time to see the sites where you are, like staying an extra day, which cuts into the profitability of the business,
Yes, it does.
you really don't get to enjoy the travel that much.
No, no. I did not travel as vacation. There were a few
Right.
times that I would stay over. I'd have a really good host and we would go do a few things.
Mhm.
For the most part, it was out on Friday, back late Sunday night or on Monday, and just to do it all over again. And I was averaging 25 to 35 weekends a year.
Yeah.
And that didn't include the week classes where you do a contract for a law enforcement agency or an organization or something like that, because those came in there every once in a while.
Yeah. And those are not any easier than retail classes.
No, they're more difficult
Yeah.
because, as you well know, cops are all from Missouri. Show me.
Mhm.
Whereas the armed citizen, they really want the knowledge. They really want to absorb it. But
Yeah.
law enforcement agencies can be tough. You got to be on your A game to do a cop class. You really have to.
And then you have all the contracting stuff on top of that, all the paperwork. Some places require you to get set up as a vendor. If you're traveling to another state in which you're not certified, you have to go through the whole thing of the lesson plan getting approved by that state's post or
Yes,
cleat
yes.
and everything else.
Oh yeah. There was always all that extra stuff you'd never hear
Mhm.
about, and the stuff that would hit you at the last minute. Oh yeah,
Mhm.
before you get out here, we have to have this, or you've got to register that, or we've got to have, or
Mhm.
you're literally the morning you're headed to the airport. Oh yeah, can you send us an insurance certificate? Why didn't you? I mean,
Yep.
but it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're smiling. You know exactly what we're talking about here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I learned pretty quickly that if I'm traveling to an unknown host, I don't go unless I can go self-contained.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't
Yeah.
that the truth? Let me tell you something. One of my great mentors and advisors has been Ken Hackathorn.
Hmm.
I got to know him way back when I was president of the Ohio Tactical Officers Association. He would come and do work at our conference and stuff like that. And when I retired from the sheriff's office, the last thing I did was I hosted the big ILFE International Training Conference, 2004. We had people from 18 countries, including, excluding the United States there. And Ken was one of the presenters, and we had the opportunity for an afternoon to talk. And he knew that I was thinking about maybe I wanted to get into this training business. And he told me a couple of things. He said, number one, be careful what you wish for. Number two, if you get a good proven host, treat them like gold.
Hmm.
I didn't know what he meant then, but I know what he means now.
Yep.
You get that host that you can rely on, you want to treat them like gold. You want to treat them like they're the most valuable commodity ever. Because, as you know, and we'll find out
Mhm.
even more, there are some really crummy hosts out there. Really crummy hosts.
Yeah. Some of it's that they just don't know what is needed to put on a class. And then some of it is it's not their bottom line. So they're just not worried. And um, and it's there are a couple of places that I'll go completely like if you get a chance to teach at Carl Wren's place in Texas,
I did. I
Carl's got
taught I taught a vehicle class down there. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
Carl's got everything you need in
Oh,
triplicate.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I mean, all you had to do was show up and go home.
yeah, Bill Armstrong at Mead Hall, a couple other places like that, but everywhere else, if it was unproven, I wrote, well, Heather and Brent Reeves in Michigan are solid
They're
gold.
Aren't they wonderful? They're
Mhm.
wonderful folks, really good folks.
Yeah.
I had a guy, Tim Wilkins, down in Dallas,
Mm-hmm.
was fantastic. He would get me back and forth to the airport, to my hotels, and he was fantastic. Andrew Bratton, he was my host out in Fort Collins, Colorado. As a matter of fact, I'm going out and do a private class for him in September. You know David Jenkins.
Mm-hmm.
David Jenkins up in Rochester. I mean, he was a fantastic host. He's become a close personal friend. I'm going to go up to his place in June and do a private class.
Right.
But you got those people, and they worked hard for you. And the class showed. I mean, it showed in the quality of the program you could present.
Mm-hmm.
The hosts that didn't lift a finger to do anything, those classes were crap.
Yeah.
They were crap. And the problem is, Lee, there was nothing you could do about it. You were there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I learned by hosting you, I guess would be the way to say it. I learned how you travel with all your stuff, because I got this box in the mail. You said, "Hey, I'm shipping you a package." And when you got there, you got that package, I hand it to you, and you open it up, and it was your targets and stuff like that's brilliant.
Yeah. When I started Handgun Combatives, I bought a pickup truck, and I had steel targets and swingers and bobbers, and my stuff was stacked up, and I would drive there.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of smashed fingers later, I started realizing there's got to be a better way to do this.
Yep.
Present this without all this gear. And that became a decade-long process into how can I present the same lesson, get the same result without all this big bulky equipment so I can fly. And of course, you see me now, I've got a box.
I traveled to teach a class in San Antonio last year with a thumb drive. And I went to Office Depot when my plane landed and printed out all my targets and bought a can of spray glue. And I went and I had verified they had IDPA targets there to use as backers.
Well, I did away with the spray glue and started using the stick glue, so I wouldn't have the sticky overspray.
Yeah.
Plus, you can put that little stick glue in the stuff when you ship it.
Yeah.
So it was really, really easy to work with. And, I can honestly say I'm very satisfied that my programs did not suffer as I transitioned away from complicated target systems to more simple target systems.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do with a Post-it note.
Yep. Yeah. There are great things like John Hearn does the great stuff with the lights and the turn-in targets and everything.
It's fantastic.
And you just can't replicate that stuff with any other way.
No.
But at the same time, he's limited himself to he can only go places where he can drive and haul all this stuff.
Yeah. He's either going to spend a week traveling if it's far away or whatever, but he's limited his availability. But I suspect John's a smart guy.
Yeah.
I suspect that John is going to figure out methodologies to simplify what he does and still deliver the same message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're actually teaching together this weekend along with Eric Gilhouse, doing a big combo class.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we're meeting at the range Friday evening so we can assemble all of John's targets for the class. So I've got all mine on 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper I'm going to show up with.
Oh, is this that cognitive class? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you're not doing anything this weekend, jump in the truck. We got room for you.
Jump in the truck and drive down to Georgia.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to go on a bourbon hunt with my son-in-law.
Okay.
So that's my plans this weekend. But thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Sure. I know the drive because I've been to your place, and it was shorter than when I've driven to Michigan and Shreveport, Louisiana to take classes from you. So it was.
I'm going to tell you what, you were a committed student. You're one of the few people I know of that took everything I offered, and you drove a long way to get that.
It was worth it.
It was the reason I gave you the instructor certification. I know that gave heartburn to a few of the people that paid their way to go to the week-long class, but you paid your way to go to 6 or 7 3-day classes, and you traveled great distances to do it. The only thing I had to do was see you teach. So I went to your class for 3 days and
Mhm.
watched you. You're a brilliant instructor.
Well, thank
I saw no reason not to do it. You're
you.
you're everything I was looking for.
Well,
I
good.
look at it now, I look back on it now, and I kind of wished I would have done it that way to begin with, that I would have just
Yeah.
reached out and picked some folks to do that. But it's water under the bridge.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that even though you were shutting down the business side of it, that you weren't going away. And you've also talked about several private classes that you're going to do.
Mhm, mhm.
Explain the difference between that and running a business.
Private classes, I do nothing but show up and leave.
Mhm.
Yeah. The host, they're doing all of the registration, taking all the money, printing the certificates, doing everything. I'll send them the targets and stuff I need naturally. But basically, I travel out there and I come back. They do all the work. Now, in exchange for that, I'm giving them a really good rate
Mhm.
so that they too can make some money. But that's basically what a private class is. They're doing all the
Yeah.
registration, they're contacting all the people, doing all the advertising. I'm just basically kind of hanging out. I show up and teach the class. I did talk with them as far as the content they wanted.
Mhm.
I originally proposed a class where we would do skill drills,
Yeah.
and both of the hosts kind of pulled their student base, and they said, "No, we want something combative." So we said, okay, well, we can regroup this and make it more combative in nature,
Mhm.
but we can still do some test your skills drills
Yeah.
and do some stuff like that. What I'm basically going to do in those two classes is I'm going to explore what we know happens in these gunfights time and again. I mean, let's face it, Lee, almost anything can happen.
Mhm.
But there are trends. We see things time and time again in some form or fashion. So in these classes, we're going to explore those things.
Uh,
We're going to work the skills, then we're going to drill them. And I'm hoping that the folks will leave with a greater appreciation for what they could potentially face. Because one of my big concerns after 40 plus years of training is that students really don't grasp what's going to happen to them if they get into a fight.
yeah.
It's not a Hollywood movie. There's nothing stylistic or fashionable about it. And a lot of the things that are being taught in training, this is dangerous. This is dangerous where I'm going here.
Yeah.
But a lot of the things, in my opinion, that are currently being taught are probably not necessary. The things that are being emphasized probably aren't necessary and may actually be potentially hindering performance.
All right.
Did I
Can you
say
give
that well?
yeah, can you give an example of that?
Go fast. Everything's go fast, go fast, go fast, go fast. Everybody has an internal survival instinct. It's
Mhm.
proven. It's one of the few instinctual things, all the stuff, instinctive shooting, instinctively shoot. But you instinctively eat, you breathe, you procreate, you keep yourself alive, you survive. That is an instinctual level.
Mhm.
I have never seen, or I'm not aware of anyone who has died in a gunfight because they took their time. Now, you may not have gone fast enough. That's always a possibility. But I do know of people who, in their haste, did not do what they needed to do to end the threat and perished because of it.
Mhm.
The whole concept of fast draws, fast splits, fast reloads. Yes, you do want to do those things as quickly as possible, but I actually see them stressed to the point where accuracy suffers.
Yeah.
What I would like to see return, and this is a guy that's no longer really in the training business, so I can kind of talk from hindsight. What I would like to see stressed again is the old West concept of deliberation. If you ever read the writings of somebody like Bat Masterson or Wyatt Earp or Wild Bill Hickok or Luke Short or any of those guys, if they ever talked about it, one of the things they talked about was deliberation, being deliberate. And looking into that over the decades, I've come to realize that deliberation meant several things. First of all, it meant deliberately engaging in a gunfight in which you understood you might perish. But it was also keeping yourself in check, doing what needed to be done, and finishing the job. It was the old take your time in a hurry.
Yeah.
You had to hit what you were shooting at to end the fight. Those fellas back then understood that a fast miss was really difficult to come back from. I mean, think about it. You come up and you get a sub 1 second miss. How much time is then taken recalibrating yourself to get the follow-up shot?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you just shot a quarter-second split. You came up, fired the shot, and you missed. And now in your cognitive abilities, you have to process that I missed. I've got to do this again. Oh crap, let's get back on the trigger. That takes time.
Mm-hmm.
They would have been better served to be more deliberate, get the hit in the first place, and finish the job, because it's only solid hits that end the fight. It isn't that the result we're looking for is to end the fight.
Mm-hmm.
I wished we would quit emphasizing go fast, go fast, go fast, go fast. I've seen a number of classes where the instructor will be standing there with a student and they'll, okay, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. Well, the student is going to go faster. They're going to go faster. They're going to go faster. And at a subconscious level, what they're going to be looking for is ways to shorten the desired outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And they will do that. And eventually they'll like, look at that. See, now you're down to 1.1 seconds from 1.7 seconds. And they're like, yes, great. 3 days later, they go to do that and they're back at 1.7, 1.8.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was kind of a parlor trick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to go to war with any instructors out there. That's not the point. But we need to emphasize skills, explain skills well. There is no way in any 2, 3, even 5-day class that you're going to get enough repetition of skills that you'll truly master and anchor that skill or that skill set.
Right.
All you're going to get is a good understanding of it so that when you go back to practice it, you can master and anchor it. If they lead you to believe that you've mastered and anchored it right there in that class, you're going to be sorely disappointed.
Yep. It's I can take a struggling cop, and I can coach them to an 80% score on a qual one time.
Yeah. Stand there talking in their ear. Yeah. Yeah.
But if they can't do it on demand, and of course, 80% on a qual is 30% of where you need to be. But it's
how many cops do you think have died that have had an instructor stand there and coax them through a qualification course and then send them out? And when the time came, they weren't ready to meet the challenge. I would suspect it's more than we would like to fathom.
Yeah. A prime example of that, and we won't name the YouTube channel because we don't want to give the guy views. But I was sending a YouTube,
the guy from this week.
Yeah, I was sending a YouTube video the other day. Eric Lunn is a dear friend, and Eric loves finding horrible videos on YouTube and then sending them to me. And then all of that person's videos start showing up in my YouTube feed, and I get mad at it. I think that's why he does it. And so there was one particular instructor who that Eric really, really had it bad for. And like he sends me a text message, whichever morning it was this week. I finally found somebody worse than X. Watch this video. And I turn on the video and the guy's tracing shooting drills. And one of the drills he names was a Dave Spaulding drill. It's
He
like, well, I
named
got to
he
send
named
this to Dave.
he named several of my drills.
So I got to send this to Dave. And we had quite the conversation about that. And
Well, yeah, and the drill he named, the 9 and 9 drill,
uh,
he must not have watched the video, because
yeah,
I explained very clearly the
hmm
whys of that drill
yeah,
and the skills that it reinforces. Because he has a bit of a point.
hmm
There are drills out there that are useless.
yeah,
If you come up with some drill and your only justification is it reinforces the fundamentals, you can say that about anything in which you pick up and manipulate a gun.
hmm
Drills should reinforce essential skills. And those of us that have been doing this for a while know what that is. You and I have laughed about this for a number of years now, but really the single most important thing you can do in a gunfight is get the gun between you and the threat
hmm
and control the trigger in such a way that you don't move the muzzle off target.
Yep. That's it.
And Ken Hackathorn and I were talking about that very thing at the NRA show.
hmm
Daryl Bolke was there with us, and
hmm
we got to talking about that concept. And anything that doesn't feed to that end goal is probably useless.
Yep.
Well, things like rapid lateral movement, stopping quickly to deploy the pistol, drawing the gun while moving, there's all kinds of that. Those things are directed towards that end goal. And the 9 and 9 drill is full of that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a very small target, but I'm demanding a high level of accuracy.
Yeah.
If we're going to create incapacitation, rapid incapacitation with any small arm,
hmm
there's some very small parts of the body that will accomplish that.
Yeah.
And they're pretty much represented by a 3x5 card and a 3-inch post-it note. One here, one down here. So why not make students go for that?
hmm
They can do it. It's amazing how they can do it. The biggest factor in it is, and I'm preaching to the choir here, Lee, I realize this. The biggest factor in it is concentration.
Yep.
Is getting them to focus on every round fired and doing everything technically correct. And if you got a drill that forces that, it's not useless, it's invaluable.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, this guy could have potentially ruined an entire police department.
Yeah, because I couldn't look away. It was like seeing the crash in progress, and I just had to keep watching his stuff there for a little while. And you get down, and he's a center axis relock guy, and some of the other stuff he got into, and it's
The
just
XD
like,
and the Serpa holster.
yeah, an XD45 and a Serpa, by God.
Yeah.
And
Serpa paddle.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that guy was, according to him, a range master for an agency and in charge. Now, it might have been a 3-man agency in the middle of nowhere. But he may have been the only firearms instruction that some people ever got, and that's what they were sent. Thankfully, shooting incidents in law enforcement are extremely rare.
They really are.
They're in the news all the time because we can instantly report on anything around the world in a given second, but they're extremely rare. And I think that's the only thing that hides the institutional ineptitude.
Well, we're not at war with our citizenry.
Right.
We police society, so shootings should be very rare.
Yeah.
We want them to be very rare.
Right.
We're not at war. We're not
Right.
a special operator that's stacking up bodies like
Right.
cordwood. We're not here to kill the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a cop that's stacking up bodies like cordwood, there's something wrong here. We need to look at this guy. Shooting someone should be the absolute last resort. And I'm not a big believer in all the touchy-feely stuff that's going on in police training right now, but I do believe
Right.
that.
Yeah.
I don't believe we should be killing people helter-skelter.
Right.
But when an officer does shoot and has to take a life, he should get every benefit of the doubt
Mm-hmm.
from the citizens and the politicians. He shouldn't be thrown under the bus immediately until it's just readily apparent that he was, no, we're doing that all wrong.
Yeah.
But that's for another day. I'll get off my soapbox. I apologize.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the Old West and deliberation there for a little while. And I know that one of your things that you've done here in your retirement time is you've written an article for Guns and Ammo about the gunfight that occurred around the corner and down the street from the OK Corral.
250 feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually called it the fracas on Fremont Street because that's where it really happened. It was a vacant alley off Fremont Street, which is behind the OK Corral, but not connected.
Yeah.
But I have been long fascinated. I mean, I grew up in the 50s where all the TV shows were Westerns and stuff like that. And so the Old West has fascinated me for a long time. I've taken the time to visit a lot of the historic sites. I've been to Tombstone like 6 times.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I go there, I walk the streets and I try to learn something new. But the more I looked into the gunfight on Fremont Street, the so-called OK Corral gunfight, the more I started to think that a lot of these historians had it wrong.
Yeah.
And what led me to that was not actually the court reportings of the event afterwards, because as we both know, eyewitness testimony is sketchy at best.
Mm-hmm.
But learning more about Wyatt Earp and Virgil Earp and Morgan Earp and Doc Holliday and the Clantons and the McClarys, learning about them as people and their backgrounds and stuff like that. And while Virgil and Wyatt Earp weren't like, killing bunches of people, they had both been in armed conflict. Doc Holliday had been in several. Morgan had been in none that I've been able to find. But they all understood exactly what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that they walked down that street and walked into basically that coffin-like alley,
Yeah.
I never bought it.
Yeah.
I never bought it. They didn't walk in there and spread out and confront them people. And the more I looked into it, the more I found, the more information that most of that fight took place on the board sidewalk and actually in Fremont Street itself. Very little of it happened in that vacant lot. And studying it, finally, Joe Kurtenbach, who I met years ago when I was still writing for the magazines, he was at the NRA and we were at a gun writer event together and we got to know each other. And over the years, he's taken several of my classes. And now he is the editor at gunsandammo.com, the online issue.
Mm-hmm.
And he finally cajoled me into writing that. And I told him, I said, Joe, it can't be done in 1,500 words. It cannot be done. If I'm going to do this, you're going to have to let me do it my way. And he says, do it. It was over 10,000 words. And I wrote it over a period of weeks and kept going back and checking and everything. And I submitted it and Joe got back to me and said, great, they're going to run it, I believe, in 3 episodes, 3 segments, whatever. But it will be available online, gunsandammo.com. And it's Dave Spaulding's take on what I think happened and why.
Cool.
So, I don't consider myself a historian. I'm a serious student of the topic. But first thing people understand, when you go down to the tourist attraction that's the OK Corral, that's not where they were standing. That is not what it looked like. They were not there. First of all, there were 2 horses in that lot. That takes up a lot of space. So it was an enjoyable time. I'm looking forward to getting it out. I'm hoping people won't go too crazy. There's going to be people that are going
Oh
to
yeah.
they're going to launch over it. Okay,
Yeah.
let them. That's
Yeah.
just part of it.
Yeah.
But it's my thought on probably the most studied law enforcement gunfight in history.
Yeah. And it's one of those incidents that has been so badly misportrayed in so much prevalent media. You
Oh,
know, the
awful.
the original movie in which it was an integral part of My Darling Clementine, the gunfight was 13 minutes in the movie.
Oh, Jesus. Well, and
Yeah.
all of them, I think I've seen all of the renditions, and they all
Mhm.
take place in this huge open area.
Yeah.
That vacant lot was, we're not really sure because things have
Mhm.
changed, but it was somewhere between 15 and 20 feet wide
Mhm.
and 18 to 25 feet deep. There were walls on two sides and a fence and bushes and stuff at the end.
Yeah.
There was no way out. The
Yeah.
only way out was the split between Fly's boarding house and Fly's photographic studio, which was the way that Johnny Behan went when he
Mhm.
decided to get out of the way. But it's a fellow that's in the know. I'm not going to use his name because I don't want to jam him up. But a fellow that I believe was in the know when Kevin Jarre first tried to get Tombstone, the movie, made the way he wanted to. He made it very clear that they couldn't shoot the OK Corral accurately because they couldn't get the cameras and stuff they needed in an area that size and show what was happening. So that's one of the problems with the Hollywood portrayals. They need
Yeah.
space. They need space to make it. But it was basically just a horizontal coffin. There was no place to go. And you and I both know that the Earps were sharp enough to realize that, well, I ain't going in there.
Mhm.
And they didn't. There's nothing that says they went in there. I mean, some of the eyewitness testimony is skeptical, but some of the stuff that has stood the test of time is Virgil Earp may have taken a step off the sidewalk just to get to the front to issue the commands.
Mhm.
Boys, I'm here to arrest you. Put down your arms. But I have found several situations where Wyatt Earp stood at the corner of the boarding house because I think he understood that this is probably a good thing to have between me and them.
Yeah.
And then Doc Holliday did go to the middle of Fremont Street, but that was why he deliberately took the double barrel shotgun, because he wanted the intimidation factor of anybody that may try to enter the fight. So it's interestingly improperly portrayed.
Yeah. Well, you know, there was that whole TV series talking about the 50s and 60s Western that portrayed, you know, Wyatt Earp as this paragon of virtue. And
The Life and Times of Wyatt Earp.
he was, he walked both sides of the line. He was pretty shady.
You know what? Wyatt, I people say that, and I can understand their viewpoint. I
Mhm.
think that Wyatt Earp wasn't good or bad. He wasn't evil. He wasn't a hero. I think he was just a man of his time.
Mhm.
He was trying to get over. He wanted to be a businessman. He wanted to be wealthy. He wanted to have influence. He wanted to have a position in the community, but he never could latch on to it. And he kept having to fall back to lawing, to law enforcement, what they called lawing. They
Mhm.
had to do that because they just couldn't find anything else. And throughout his life, he made a huge amount of money in Nome, Alaska, with his bar and bordello up there with all those
Mhm.
miners in the Yukon,
Yeah.
and blew it all away, giving it to friends and stuff. He had
Yeah.
no real concept of wealth.
Yeah. I remember having a debate with a college professor back in the day who was trying to express a pro gun control argument. And they said, you know, Wyatt Earp banned guns and everything, whatever else. Well, if you want me to be like Wyatt Earp, that means I can go around pistol whipping people and running protection rackets for brothels. You
The,
know, you can't have it both ways here. And
the
it's
Earp brothers didn't pass that law. It's not like in the movie
right.
Tombstone. The
Yeah.
city council did that.
Right.
They enforced it.
Hmm.
But let's examine that. I am not a proponent of gun control by no means.
Yeah. Right.
But think about what was going on. Women, alcohol, gambling,
Hmm.
money. You don't think that those all could collide and end up with guns being drawn when they shouldn't be.
Hmm.
It was a unique location
Right.
in which, God, people are going to get mad at us, but maybe in that circumstance, there was something to it. Let's face it, though, it was only enforced when they wanted to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why did Doc Holliday have a gun?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it was loosely enforced. I think it was one of those things, they had it on the books in case they needed it.
Hmm.
But if a person wasn't acting up, they probably kind of just let it go.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows?
And another thing about the guys, they weren't cowards. Virgil charged a cannon at Fort Donaldson.
Mm-hmm. He
Uh,
was not. He was not a coward. He
yeah.
was not. Matter of fact, he got involved in an interesting gunfight up in Prescott, Arizona, when he was
Hmm.
up there. Rob Leahy from um, this is getting old. Holsters, Simply
Oh,
Rugged Holsters.
Simply Rugged. Yeah.
Simply Rugged Holsters. He makes a fantastic leather holster. Apparently, he does kind of an unofficial tour of where that happened and all that. And the next time I get out there, I'm gonna hunt him up and have
Uh,
him take me on that tour, because I want to see that.
cool.
That's one of those things that I have not had the chance to witness yet, and I want to do that. So I'm
Cool.
going to get back out to Prescott. I'm sure I'll be going to Gunsight again. So I'm gonna go out a day early and see if I can
Sure.
hook him up.
Well, speaking of Prescott and Gunsight, is that where you went to do the Best Defense TV stuff?
Yeah. Um, as you know, they've reintroduced the Best Defense, different hosts, different format, and all that kind of stuff. They did bring Michael Bain back to be a producer because he was behind the original one. They,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of wanted his input. So Michael and Jeff Murray, the producers, asked me to come out and act as a technical advisor,
Mm-hmm.
at least on the initial episodes. And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. It'd be a good time. So I flew out there to do that. And it was supposed to be Rich Nance and Jeremy Stafford, who are the hosts of the show. The day he's supposed to get on the plane, Rich comes down with the Rona and he can't fly. He lives in California. He can't fly. So I get out there. I ended up getting drafted to kind of help him with his host duties. So there's going to be some segments on this season of the Best Defense where I actually will work with Jeremy Stafford. We actually do the 9 and 9 drill so people can see it done. But we talk about mindset, red dot,
Mm-hmm.
pistols, and a wider range of stuff. And I like the way the show's going. Nothing against the way the original show, but I
Mm-hmm.
like the way it's going. They liberally use the guys from Gunsight. They latched on to Freddie Blish and Lou Gosnell and some of the guys that are there and got their input. I'm sure Eric Gelhaus,
Sure.
he's involved in it and stuff like that. So they're not bashful about reaching out and getting outside expertise beyond just Rich and Jeremy, though
Mm-hmm.
they're both very knowledgeable guys, very
Cool.
knowledgeable. I had a really good time doing that. I hope I get invited back again. It was a lot of fun.
Cool. Cool. You've been doing a lot of stuff in the tactical wire here lately as well.
Yeah, yep. I've been writing for Rich Grassi, and people say, "Well, he's probably paying you well." He ain't paying me a dime. I do that for Rich because he's been a friend of mine for 25 years. We met when we were both writers at the old Harris Publications under Harry Kane. We got to know each other at the ASLET and ILFE conferences, and Rich asked me to do something here and there, and he lets me say whatever I want. And he doesn't edit me unless I just said something that's nonsensical and he's got to fix it. But he lets me have my say, and I really enjoy it. I have the time to kind of do that, and like I say, Rich is really good people, so I'm enjoying doing that. I guess what's happened here Lee, is I've kind of gone from trainer to commentator. I want to stay in this. The whole personal security, combative firearms arena is still of great interest to me. I just don't want to teach it anymore. But I want to stay involved. And I'll be honest with you, both Tom Gibbons and Ken Hackathorn sat down with me during meals and said, you shouldn't just go away. You should stay involved. So maybe this is the way for me to do that, is just to kind of comment, not looking to pick fights with anybody, but just maybe comment on 4+ decades of doing this and having seen a lot of things come and go and work out. We know how to prepare people now. We have a pretty good idea how to go about this with the limited time and availability of ammunition and all that stuff that we have. We know how to do this pretty well. We just need to keep all the wannabe tactical wizards out of the way. The flashy, cool looking stuff that we talked about earlier, that's just going to hinder the process of this.
Yeah. Of course, you say you don't want to teach it anymore. You sure are teaching a lot of private classes and stuff.
I'm teaching 3. I'm versus 25 to 35. Right. I'm teaching 3.
Would it be fair to say that you just don't want to run the business anymore?
I do not want to run the business. I don't want to be in anybody else's schedule. I want to have fun. As a matter of fact, Rich Nance and I are co-teaching a class in Laramie, Wyoming, and then like 4 days later in Fort Collins, Colorado. And it's mostly to fund our vacation, because we're going to go to Colorado, Wyoming. We're going to go up to Deadwood. We're going to do all that kind of stuff and basically get a chance to visit, hang out together. And it's really more about doing that. Yeah, we're going to deliver a really top quality product. We really are. We're going to do a good class, but it's more about having a good time. I mean, I'm 68 years old, and if we just look recently, Tiger McKee, Bart Skelton, we're losing people in my generation, and none of us know if tomorrow isn't it. Tomorrow isn't the day. So at this stage of my life, I guess it's more about being healthy and happy and doing the things I enjoy. And I don't enjoy weekend after weekend after weekend doing it. Do I still enjoy being with students and trying to share some wisdom? I do. But I want to do it in a fun environment. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, you'll enjoy Deadwood. It's a very interesting place.
I've been there. I've been there. I want to go. I'm going back. It really is. I went the first time, and like most tourists, looked around. Then when I got back, I started looking into the things that I should have. I'm going to do that this time.
Yeah,
I'm going to do that this time.
I met up with Tom Givens there one day.
Oh, did you?
We did the tourist thing. We were teaching a class in South Dakota, and then we went over to to Deadwood the next day.
Yeah.
And we were going to meet because I was leaving to go to Cheyenne from there. And he's like, "What time do you want to meet there?" I'm like, "High noon. When else are we going to meet?" We're going to meet in the street,
Yeah.
High noon. And had a good time walking up and down, seeing the sights and eating lunch there.
Walking the streets of those places, whether it's Deadwood or Tombstone, or even going down to where the FBI shootout in Miami was.
Yeah.
Walking the ground where the things happened, you get to see, you get a better view of what happened versus just watching the video or having somebody, on a video explaining to you what transpired. And it's just interesting to do.
I've mentioned it on the show before, but it bears repeating. Is I had always wondered how Custer could have ridden up on all of those Indians at Little Bighorn. It's like, how could you not known there were thousands of people there until I went to the field myself? It's like, well, okay, now I understand the geography of this and exactly how this happened.
Yeah, well, you think from seeing it on television where the
Yeah,
graves and stuff are out that it's this open hillside, but it's really not.
it's not.
There's a river, there's a ravine, there's
Hmm.
trees, there's all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
around that make it look a lot different
Yep.
than just what you see on television.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, the only visual indicator, and Custer ignored his scouts, is they were telling him the size of the horse herd that they could see when they climbed up on the crow's nest.
Yeah, yeah, right.
And said the size of the horse herd meant there had to be X number of people there. And Custer disbelieved them, said, "Oh, I can't be that many." And it could
Oops.
have easily been two or three times that many in that geographic space, and it could have done the same thing.
Well, Custer was known to be a bit arrogant.
Hmm.
He was known to
Yeah.
be. So anyway,
Yeah.
have you ever had
Yeah.
the opportunity to go to Virginia City, Nevada?
I have not.
If you get the opportunity to do it, there wasn't any like great gunfights or anything happened there. It's where the
Right.
Comstock silver mine is
Hmm.
located. But the town is well preserved, much like it was then.
Okay.
And you get the opportunity to just kind of walk around and look and see that this is the way these people lived.
Hmm.
You know, it was a rough life.
Right.
It was a rough time to be alive, no doubt about it.
John Hearn is woefully ignorant of classic westerns. John, Virginia City is where Bonanza. What's that, John?
That's right.
Bonanza. You
That's
mentioned
right.
Lauren Green the other night, John. There we go.
He didn't know what Bonanza was.
He doesn't know what the shows are, but he knew Lauren Green had been in Battlestar Galactica, and you know,
Such a youngster, such a child.
yeah, yeah. He spent all
Okay.
his time on book learning when he could have been watching good westerns on TV.
Oh yeah, watching good movies and stuff
Yeah,
like that. You bet. You bet.
yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about before we adjourn this thing? I know if these things are too long, people don't watch them.
Um, I did have one question that someone that wanted me to ask you that relates to one of your upcoming classes. You're doing your pistol mounted optics class coming up.
Yeah, I'm doing it here in Dayton, Ohio in August.
Hmm.
That was that was a balloon,
Right.
is what it was. I had a number about 6 or 8 former students, good friends that said, could
Hmm.
you just do the red dot class? Do it for us.
Hmm.
I believe I have a unique take on that.
You absolutely do.
That I do that's biomechanically sound.
Hmm.
And they said, could you do it one more time? And I said, yeah, okay, but if we're going to do this, why don't we see if we can, get some more people? So I
Hmm.
just put it up on Facebook saying, hey, is anybody else interested in this? Holy smokes. It blew up like a balloon. We ended up with
Hmm.
40 people in the class. Fortunately, James and Corey Cocking at Mushin SST, the people that own the range out there in
Hmm.
Brookville, they have 20 firing points. So we can
Yeah.
do that many people, but it blew up like nobody's business. And everybody is paid in full.
Yeah.
I actually had to tell people, quit sending checks. I can't take any more folks. It was, I'm going to be honest with you, it was extremely gratifying
Yeah.
because, I was hoping maybe I'd get 12 or 14 people that would come and do it. We could do a nice class.
Hmm.
I have people coming from as far away as Texas and California for a 1-day class.
Yep.
So that is really gratifying. And since you took that class, I've refined it a little bit more.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I would love to get with you sometime
Sure.
and kind of take you through how
Hmm.
I'm doing it now, because it
Okay.
actually makes more sense than what I used to do.
Okay. Sure.
So because I know you're doing this stuff. As a matter of fact,
Hmm.
you're one of the few people that actually taught a handgun combatives class.
Hmm.
And you said that went really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I didn't try to be a Dave impersonator, but I tried to teach true to Dave's material.
well, that was one of the things that I did not think about when I did that.
Right.
I was so interested in continuing the doctrine because I thought it
Hmm.
was worthwhile
Yeah.
that I never took into account what you call the bubblegum card phenomenon, where
Hmm.
people wanted to take a class from the person,
Hmm.
not the doctrine being delivered. They
Yep.
wanted to collect their bubblegum card. And I
Yeah.
never took that into account. And that was unfortunate. I wished I would have thought of that ahead of time.
Yeah. But we need to keep that material alive. It's great material. I would say that the the class filling so well as it did is proof that you don't have to travel to get people to come to your material. 3 or 4 times a year do this.
Well, I may teach a class here and there. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's going to depend on my health.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm healthy. I can pretty
Mhm.
much do everything that I used to do. Well, I don't shoot like I used to. As a matter of fact,
Mhm.
Ken Hackathorn and I, we were talking at the NRA. He was telling me because he's got a range on his property. He says he goes
Yeah.
out there and shoots every day, and he never fails to learn something. And I said, "What are you learning?" He says, "I'm learning that I'm not as good as I used to." And I'm like, "I know what you're saying." And then we start talking about our hands and the problems we've got.
Yeah.
And I can't go as fast. I can't shoot as well as I used to. And it's just the way it is. I'm getting older,
Yeah.
but I'm still
Yeah.
performing well. I'm still doing the things I
Mhm.
need to do. I can still demo the skills, but it's going to be a matter of how long, my health holds out.
Mhm.
But, I sure wouldn't mind coming down your way again,
Sure. Come
maybe
on.
sometime in the future, just to hang out with
Absolutely.
you,
Absolutely.
just,
Come on.
just to come down and hang out. And, maybe you can select certain people. We can have a good time,
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can get that going.
Yeah.
you know, as I've been traveling around doing this, a deep dive into the pistol mounted optics thing. And it's funny, that
Mhm.
running joke about Weems hates optics and everything.
No,
I,
you
I sure,
don't.
I sure spend a
You
lot
have
of
about
effort.
4 of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I spend a lot of money and effort on something that I supposedly hate, trying to figure it out.
You shoot that pistol mounted optic very well,
And
very well.
and it's having gone through your class, and that was one of the classes I did early on in this deep dive, and some of
Hmm.
the other stuff that I've seen out there. You got to put your feet in this position to accomplish this, then whatever. Like, how are you going to do that in a fight where you don't get to determine where your feet are?
Well, that's a competition application to a combative problem. In a
Yeah.
competition, you can plant your feet and do all that,
Mm-hmm.
but in a fight, you may be leaning around a tire at ground
Right.
level, and then you're not going to be able to get your nose directly behind the slide plate and
Yeah.
some of that. Theirs is probably as many remedies to find the red dot as there are instructors emphasizing it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have to rely on being in a particular position,
Yep.
then combatively, it's probably useless.
Our mutual acquaintance Brian Eastridge did a class recently, and he had someone come from a low ready. They were shooting a pistol with a pistol mounted optic, and the student looked at, I've never done it from the low ready before. And I'm paraphrasing here. And Brian's like, well, how many dot classes have you taken? And the guy named like several of them. And everything involved this presentation from the holster so that all this kind of stuff. And it's like,
Up and out.
yeah. And so you never did it from any other position than
Hey,
that.
you're my
Yeah.
opponent. Okay. I'm trying to get the gun between you and me
Mm-hmm.
and not, and I'm doing this with the muzzle.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh.
You need to be oriented between me and you as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
In a competition, it isn't going to matter.
Yeah.
But there are basically 3 applications. There's combative application, competitive application, and sporting application, or
Mm-hmm.
plinking, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And the 3 don't necessarily meet in the middle,
Right.
if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything that I do is combative. It's designed to get the gun between you and the threat,
Mm-hmm.
and to depress the trigger without taking the muzzle off target.
Yep.
And that's how I view the red dot.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into it here because I'm teaching a class.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about. But I've refined it even more. I actually met with a sports physiologist from a local college, and I'm not going to say anymore because I don't know if he wants me to talk about him.
Right.
And we went through the body mechanics of doing this stuff. And some of the best information on this kind of thing comes from people who know nothing about shooting,
Mm-hmm.
because they just tell you what happens. They don't have any
Yep.
shooter's bias.
Right.
So I've refined it even more because I think I've seen a lot of gadgets and gewgaws that were just useless.
Mm-hmm.
and they came and they went. I don't think that's the case for carry optics. I think they're here to stay, and
Yeah.
I think they're not essential. They're not necessary. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of years of using iron sights have shown us that they're not essential, but they're useful.
Yeah.
And they're going to get more useful. And I've got some people who are in law enforcement right now, and the agency's pushing to go to red dots, and the guys are saying, I don't think we're ready. And there, an argument could be made that we're not ready for those yet.
Yeah.
As we've talked about, my biggest fear with optics is not the dot goes out. You just shoot through the tube or the screen, or you use the backup iron sights. My concern is unexpected loss of zero. And that happens more often than people want to admit. Because think about it, Lee, if it's shifted a click or two, you're not hitting where you're trying to shoot at. Now, if you're relatively close, it may not make a difference. But say you're back at 15 yards and you're trying to get a shot, you may be over here.
Yep.
Well, shift to your irons. Why would you do that? If the dot is still there, why would you shift to your irons? The dot's there. I'm going to use it.
Yep.
But you're not going to know when click, click.
Yep.
That's my concern with those.
You know, you mentioned that in our early discussions on the dot, and I had it happen to me recently.
You were telling me about that.
Yeah, with a very quality optic. I'll say it, Fritchcon Armor.
One of the best. One of the best.
I was working with a jailer who was about to go to the academy. It was like he was starting the academy the next week, and we went down to do one last hoorah before he went. And I wanted him to shoot a particular exercise, and I was demoing it because it was a new one I was having him do. And I missed the headshots. And I owned it.
The small target.
And they were all high. And I owned it. Well, I guess I screwed that one up. Let me do it right this time. And I missed the headshots again in the same place. And I said, hold on a second. We're going to stop right now. Yeah. And I went and set up on a target, and I shot a group and everything. Like, we are several inches high from where we need to be. And so we went happened
here to here
in an instant. Yeah. And so
it happened to me. You've run my box drill. It happened to me going back from the 7-yard line to the 15-yard line. Come up, bam, miss, bam. Yeah, well, the first couple shots, it's me. It's me. But then you keep doing it, and like, I'm not that poor of a shot. So time out. Fortunately, we're in Colorado. It was a sand range, basically a desert. So I line up and I get on it and I depress the trigger nice and smooth, and you can see the poofs off to the right.
Yeah. I still think we're at least a generation away on the technology, probably 2, before they're foolproof.
They get better. They get better every year. They're going to be here. They're going to be the sight system of the future, no doubt. Yeah. Are we there yet? Yeah, I know I'm arguing, but I'm going to stay out of that argument because it's very, very emotional. I will say I like them.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're trying to find your sight, as you can see, I've been a fan of high visibility front sights for a long time. And the reason for it was because a high visibility front sight, you can place up there and have a frame of reference and still look at the target for threat situations. That's not a new concept. Dot optics didn't bring that to bear.
Right.
High visibility front sights brought that to bear. So I shifted to a dot optic really quick because I never hard focused on my front sight. It was always a green glob or something. But they glow. I mean, the frickin' sight glows. It's hard to ignore it. You can find it really fast. And as you and I both know, they're not hard. You can find them reliably. They're not that hard to find. You just have to know how to do it.
Yeah.
But I go back and forth. I admit I like them. I like to shoot them. They make me a better shooter. But if I was holstering up and I was getting in my patrol car right now, would I use one? I'd have to think about that.
I still am going on duty and going around in my daily carry with an iron sight pistol. I actually have a Glock MOS 7, which is direct mill cut for the acro
Mhm.
and an acro and everything on order right now. And when it gets here, I'm probably gonna probably start carrying it. But I still have my reservations on a couple of things with them. I will not go into the field with an adapter plate,
No.
and I'm very leery of. Everybody calls them open emitter. My buddy Shane Gosa calls it single glass pane and double glass pane.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're
Yeah,
all closed emitters because
yeah,
they're protected.
right,
It's just that it's got a housing around it, so it looks
yeah,
like a pole barn on your slide.
yeah,
And if for you going on duty, that makes some sense. But for
mhm,
the average citizen, everyday carry, I'm
yeah,
not sure how important that is.
yeah,
I'm using that Holosun SCS MOS
yeah,
that fits into the Glock dovetail.
mhm,
It's really low profile and it's
yeah,
really bright. And I like that for concealed carry because it's diminutive. I mean,
yeah,
it's really small. Would I want that in a patrol car? I don't know. I'd,
yeah,
I'd have to really think hard about that. By the same token, like your acro,
yeah,
that's a big glob of something on top if I was trying to conceal it.
right, yeah.
But
It's not going to be a concealed carry gun. Yeah,
in a patrol car, it wouldn't be such a big deal. So
yeah,
it's I sure hope we don't get a lot of hate mail over this because I like carry optics,
mhm,
but the in the back of my primal brain, I'm like, that they still have some problems here and
yeah,
there
yeah,
that I don't know, but I'm giving it to the companies. They get better
mhm,
every year that goes by. I
yeah,
will say that when Bucky Buchanan and I got together and created our dot optic class, I just went online,
mhm,
Optics Planet, Amazon, and I bought 6 of the
mhm,
better known ones, and we did everything we could. They all went back.
yeah,
They were all returned. But I am convinced that because I know I got new ones back for all of them. They didn't repair any of them. They just sent me new ones. They were all better.
yeah,
They were all better units than what went to them. That's how fast this is changing.
yeah. I when the SCS for the CZP-10C comes out, I will be getting 2 of those so I can eliminate the adapter plates, and that's what'll go on those guns. Um,
I'm not an adapter plate guy. Every time you put something between something, you lose something.
yeah, I've seen so much problems with it out there.
I don't
Um,
care who makes them and what they're made of.
mhm,
It's just an invitation for something going wrong. It's one more thing.
yeah. I've got a Holosun EPS and a Holosun EPS carry on 2 different pistols, and I'm
Mhm.
really liking that optic. Um, and of course, but I still can't get over. It's going to be hard for me to go on duty with anything other than something that says aim point on my gun. And I know everything fails, but aim point,
Everything human designed and manufactured will fail.
aim point just is the most proven to me, and I'm
Well,
just not gonna.
Aimpoint makes a good product, but
Yeah,
I think you can honestly say the same thing for Trigicon.
yeah,
I mean, if you've ever been to Trigicon and you've sat there and watched them make
hmm
an ACOG
hmm
or an MRO, and you see what goes into constructing those, you're like,
yeah,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah. But so far, the only optic I've had personally fail is the RMR, and I've had another one that there was a little bit of a shift, but not to the grand thing. Now, I will say that both of those pistols spend most of their life riding around in the bag in the locked cargo container on a pickup truck so that they're
Yeah,
in my truck when I get to the range. And
sure.
they're my teaching and practice guns. They're not. Yeah.
Right.
So they're enduring lots of weather extremes and the like. And they've both been on guns. Oh gosh. They were when I came to your optics class that you did up in North Carolina. That's how long they've been. They both
almost
made that
2
trip.
years ago, I think.
Yeah, they both made that trip, and they've lived their entire lives in the back of a pickup truck,
Yeah.
except for when they're in a holster on the range. So it's
I have no doubt. I think these units are durable. I
yeah.
think they're durable and they're getting better. But when you've got mounting plates and batteries, and
Hmm.
I mean, little tiny things that dial it in,
Hmm.
I actually took one of the optics that I originally bought, and Bucky and I tore it apart. And you
Hmm.
look at them little micro components in there, and you think, how durable can this stuff be? Well,
Yeah.
it can be real durable.
Hmm.
But if you look at it, you think, well, these are little tiny parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you always hear people say, well, iron sights fail too and everything. I will say I had a Gen 3 Glock 17 that something was the matter with the rear dovetail, and iron sights would walk in
I've
that
had rear
dovetail.
sights walk, and
Yeah.
I've had Glock fronts go flying.
And so, yeah, that stuff happens too. But
It does. And we got to be honest and we've got to be fair. It does
yeah,
happen. But I think they do not happen at the rate that we'll have with carry optics.
yeah.
And again, I'll be the first to say carry optics are the future.
Hmm.
They will be there.
Yeah.
Whether they're there now is open to debate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is one that the private citizen probably won't run into as far as iron sights go. I was in a patrol car and I looked over and saw that somebody absentmindedly had been playing with the adjustments on the rear side of an AR-15, and the sight had been cranked all the way over. And I'm like, that's not where that goes, because I zeroed this rifle.
Somebody driving around just playing
Just
with
absolutely
the dial.
absentmindedly playing with it. And it's
Kind of
like,
like chicken
yeah.
bones and cigars being down the barrel of the
Hmm.
shotgun.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, guys, I got to take this one back to the range, and zero. Sure enough, it was over.
I hear
And
you. I hear you.
but
Yeah.
all right. Well, this has been a great conversation. I enjoyed it as always.
I just enjoy spending time with you. We haven't talked in a while, so I really enjoy this.
I
It's
always
it's
enjoy.
usually a text message.
Sure.
It's not the same. It's
Right.
not the same as getting sit here and talk. So
Right.
I really enjoyed spending time with you.
There you go. We got to get together with you and Tom and Hearn, and maybe get a couple of other guys together,
That would be fun.
and have
That would
some
be
fun with
fun.
that.
And just have a good time, not do business.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you bet.
And as always, it's great to talk with you, and thank you for taking your time to do this tonight.
Well, listen, if I can ever help you out, let me know. As you know, I turn these things down most of the time anymore because I'm just not
Sure.
interested. But just we're friends, so
Sure.
if I can help you, let me know.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Same to you. Same to you. And to the audience, we know that your most important asset is your time. Thank you for choosing to spend it with us.